Okay, let's get into the really fun part of the show. Always enjoy talking to our special guest, John Wollman. John, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
So how's life treating you these days? You doing all right?
Life is good. It's a very hectic time in the industry that I serve, which is the healthcare market.
Yeah, well, tell us about your company.
My company is HighPoint Solutions. We're about a 10-year-old firm. We started in 2000. We're about a $60 million company with about 325 consultants that are deploying to our clients throughout the United States and globally in some cases. I focus on the healthcare industry, which includes the payers and the providers, the healthcare insurance companies, as well as the hospitals and integrated delivery networks. Okay. And we also have a pharmaceutical or life sciences practice that's serving 17 of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies.
All right.
Fantastic. What do you see some of the winners and losers of the healthcare reform? How do you view that?
That's a very complex question.
I know.
But a lot of fun to think about. If you think about it, the obvious winners are people that couldn't afford healthcare insurance before. Mm-hmm. That would be provided the opportunity to have healthcare insurance, and the obvious losers are the people that have to pay for that, which is most of the tax base. From a corporate perspective, the winners, of course, are going to be companies that benefit from 32 million additional card-carrying members of healthcare payers and Medicaid and things like that.
They're getting in for free, right? That's what I heard.
They're getting in for free or significantly subsidized, much like Medicaid today is for a certain segment. Now a much larger segment will have access to those same kind of benefits. I think some of the winners of that are going to be companies that provide ancillary services. The hospitals aren't going to win so big, whereas before they had a lot of indigent patients that couldn't afford to pay for things that may have cards these days. That'll be likely offset by reduced reimbursement rates, both from the government for Medicare and Medicaid, as well as from the commercial sector that's dealing with other impacts of reform. I think the winners are going to be companies that provide services like laboratory services, LabCorp, Quest, diagnostics, those kind of companies that really don't have anything to lose. You know, their rates aren't going to go down, and at the same time they'll have this bolus of additional people that will be taking tests and being served that way. I also think it definitely benefits companies of scale. Yeah. So the larger payers, for example, the Aetnas, the Cignas, the United Health Groups, they're likely to be bigger winners than the smaller mid-tier companies that don't get the same benefit of the scale.
Do you think these providers are going to be allowed to cross state lines? That seems to be one of the big issues, that there's a sort of a small oligopoly in each state.
The payers,
the prices,
yeah, the payers, yeah.
And that the price would come down if they would change that.
I think what you see in reform, and part of reform, which does serve to commoditize healthcare and make it available via new channels, particularly the exchanges, which are going to start coming online within around 2014, fiscal 2014, which is really 2013, October of 2013. There's provisions for multi-state delivery through these exchanges, but not initially. I think it's 2016 or 2017 that actually comes into play. But I think you will see that. Nonetheless, you do see companies today like WellPoint that has Blue Cross Blue Shield plans that are in lots of different states that are really a holding company of plans that are more local. You do see some of that today, and certainly United Health Group, Cigna, Aetna, they play on a United States-wide basis. And they definitely have a big advantage, I believe, over some of the more local healthcare institutions, because they do get the benefit of these investments that they need to make on, obviously, the economies of scale of having a larger member base.
Sure. Most of our viewers and listeners are obviously going to be users of healthcare. Can you talk to them a little bit about what you think they can expect to see over the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I think there's some really, really good things as patients. You know, if you look at what PPACA stands for, it's Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act.
All right.
From a patient protection perspective, things like no lifetime limits, things like no pre-existing conditions, being denied a claim or being denied access to insurance because of those things, certainly should make all of us as patients feel good. What makes us feel good, though, makes the companies feel a little bit of angst. You know, part of what the insurance companies did for years, the people that were really good at rating the risk did very well, and people that weren't good at rating the risk didn't do so well. These days, you take that risk rating out of the equation because there's all of the levers that they had before just don't exist anymore, or won't exist within 3 or 4 years.
Help me deal with the question that I have. If I were an owner of one of these companies, I would be concerned that someone finds out that they have $1 million cancer case, they haven't been paying insurance, and then they walk up and say, here's my $80, now pay my $1 million bill. Am I exaggerating what would happen here, or I mean, how's that going to work?
You're not, and again, I'm not a political guy, but no. I think the counterbalance to that, and that's a very real scenario, that you have people that jump on and off insurance and they can't be denied because of that pre-existing condition. The flip side, though, is what the government is banking on. If you look at the projections, is that they're now going to be forcing insurance to people that wouldn't have bought insurance before, the young and healthy, because they didn't feel that they needed it. They felt invincible, as most
Right.
young people do.
Right.
But that healthier pool of people that are now forced to be in insurance, in theory, because they have to pay a fine if they're not, they should offset those issues with people that are sicker. I don't know how that really works when you have a population that's aging, when the baby boomers are becoming
Right.
more Medicare beneficiaries.
Yeah.
But the numbers, some of the parties believe that the numbers work. Other things, it's crazy.
Now, if there's if the new Congress goes and tries to defund some of this, what kind of a monkey wrench will that throw into things? I mean, will there be any teeth in it, or just more of a hassle factor?
Well, it's an interesting thing. As a consultant, as a company that helps our clients adopt change and affect change, it's certainly good for us anytime there's change.
Right.
I think in this case, a lot of the legislation requires regulations to be written that haven't been written. And since it hasn't been written, and a lot of things really don't come online until 2013, 2014, 2012, 2017, 2018, any changes that get made, there is time to react to those, but it creates a lot of hassle and challenges for the payers and providers alike as they're trying to put in place plans to maximize either their clinical effectiveness if you're a provider organization, or how well you're paying for things if you're a payer. You have some time to react to those things.
Right.
And there's a lot of unforeseen reactions to unintended consequences. I have one friend who has 57 employees, and apparently right now 50 is the cutoff where you pay the $2,000 fine, and he can't afford to pay health care for his employees. So his reaction is, I love all 57 employees, but I'm going to have to figure out which 8 to let go so the other 49 can survive. So, and I guess you're probably advising people who are trying to read the rules and figure out how they can survive it, depending on how tough the industry they're in. So this is pretty brutal stuff.
Yeah, it could be very cutthroat. You hear a lot of things about employee dumping. It's likely that some companies might say, okay, just buy through the exchange and we'll give you some subsidies, or we'll just pay the fine. $2,000 an employee is less than it's going to cost us to provide health care insurance to these people. All of those things are potential realities. I think mostly people have always considered health care benefits as a right and not a privilege, and that may change as things become more costly. But that's counterbalanced by having these exchanges and the commoditization of healthcare insurance so that plans start to homogenize. There are decent benefits that are going to be available at a much lower price point than they're available today, and they'll be available through these exchanges to large and small groups.
What can the consumer expect from reform? I mean, will they see more choices? Will their service get better or worse? Pricing?
There's a lot of things that are in the Healthcare Reform Act around transparency, and a lot of those transparency initiatives will favor the consumers. The transparency, and anytime you have a commoditization and a homogenization of product, in this case it's healthcare insurance and benefits, and it's more visible, and it's available through an electronic channel, and it's easy to switch, benefits consumers, in theory. Some of the challenges that you brought up, Charlie, might offset that, the fact that people may only play in certain geographies in certain states, and there is some level of that's going to go on. But I think consumers ultimately will benefit, with the exception of the fact that consumers are ultimately funding it. And that's not necessarily true for the lower end, lower segments of the market, but people that have jobs and will pay more taxes in order to fund the people that don't.